Hello there, Internet. Welcome to another episode of Weekly Art Tips. I'm your host, Ando, and today we're going to be looking at Alkraas's Deviant art. So let's dive right in. Alright, so the first image we're going to be looking at is I'm a Living Nightmare. Okay. The first thing I want to say is this is a really polished image. I love the rendering, especially that you have with this red right here. Just the way that this highlight falls upon the muzzle is just super nice. Another thing I want to say is these kind of grayish detail lines are a great touch. Honestly, this is such a polished piece. I don't think I have that much to tell you, aside from like really nitpicky things. But this looks really highly professional. One of the things that I really like about this is that these kind of thorny vines that you have all throughout the background, you have them in the foreground as well. It's because they're too close to the viewer that it's almost like the camera's out of focus, just with the way that they are. So that's a fantastic touch. And in contrast with that, you have the character here who is much more cleanly rendered, and you can see a lot more line work and detail in it. So that's really nice. One thing that I would recommend about these teeth is since the lip of I assume it's like a wolf type animal, but it has kind of horns, so it's probably just like an animal hybrid of some sort. But anyways, so the way that you have the muzzle and the lip kind of going over the teeth, you would see a bit more of like a straight line shadow just where the lip is falling. And you have a nice shadow here that's kind of green, but you'd probably see an additional shadow right on top. You do have the line work there, which I suppose could be also the shadow there, but I feel like it would be a little bit wider just because the lip would be a bit thicker. One other thing would be that there would also be a shadow where this tooth is overlapping on the muzzle. So just adding a little bit there. It's kind of hard to see that part though, since you have this kind of blurry vine going right over it. So that's really not anything that would ruin this image. And like I said before, this is a very polished image, and I'm really liking it a lot. One additional thing that I would mention is you have a nice highlight on these little beads here, but I don't see quite as much as a bright highlight on this bigger bead. There's like a bright spot here, but I feel like you'd see maybe just like one bright spot up near the top like you have on these beads. Again, very nitpicky. I really like these kind of bright highlights that you have across this visor part. That's really cool. And just kind of the concept of like physical animals with like clothing items on has always been appealing to me. Not like anthro, but like it's an animal, but it has like a helmet or like a little vest or something, has always been an appealing design choice for me specifically. So I like the fact that you have this kind of visor piece that's going over the animal's eyes. So that's really cool. One thing that's kind of weird for the rendering is for the fur, you have this kind of like mountainy shape lines, and I would assume that that's like the fur texture, but like the way that the fur is, it looks more velvety than like fluffy. So maybe if you wanted to make it a bit more fluffy, instead of focusing on large shapes to show the fur texture, maybe focusing on smaller shapes, just like a lot of them, would make it look a lot fluffier. And then since you have like these kind of large triangular like patches of fur, having a bit of like a little fluffy effect to it would make it look a lot more tactile and a bit more like an actual wolf's fur would be. Because the way that it is right now, it's a lot more graphic design shapes than I feel like an actual animal would have. But if that's a stylistic choice, then I completely understand. And I did mention it earlier, but I really do like this kind of velvety look to the muzzle, especially because that's typically in animals where they have the shortest fur to keep their like view clear. So I do like the fact that it's so like shortly cropped there, and then it gets a bit fluffier the further back you go. So that's cool. And also you have like this muscle definition here and just kind of like these ridges to the nose. So that really adds a lot of dimensionality to the nose, and just everything there looks like a 3D image. So especially because you have these nice little bright highlights that are kind of outlining exactly where the nose goes back in space. So I honestly can't think of much else to say about this. I think it's a very, very solid piece, and as far as the background goes, I'm just going to mention that right now, this really, really golden light in the background is very, very successful. It's not a overly detailed background. It doesn't detract from the main image. You know exactly where you're supposed to be looking, and I think that this is just a really great way of getting the point of the image across. You're looking directly at what you're supposed to be, and I don't see really any wasted space. So this is a fantastic image. Keep up the great work. So let's go over to the next image, which is Children of Hell. And before I say anything about this image in particular, I'm going to just say that I am a huge Undertale fan, and I approve. So I guess spoiler alert if you haven't played Undertale yet. Maybe I'll just put like a spoiler alert at the beginning of the video. So yeah, let's talk about the image. So I really, really like the way that this is framed. You definitely have a sense of doom and dread, especially when you have Flowey's creepy skull face. This is a really, really great rendering of what that would look like, because it was all pixels when you see it in the game, but this is a really great rendition of what it would look like when it's kind of more polished and brought into a painting, like a digital painting style. So I think that's fantastic. It's got the perfect amount of menace, and the fact that you can see the whole pupil here, but this one's kind of cut off, that's just like a little thing that just adds a whole level, like a whole nother level of sass to his kind of creepy face. So that's awesome. One other thing that I want to mention about just like the facial expression in general is that these black lines kind of going down really, really add a lot to the facial expression as well. So that's really cool. It's it looks like a bit more war-torn and just creepy. And it also kind of reminds me of like Gaster's design, where it has these lines kind of going down. It's kind of like a physical manifestation of his soul getting torn apart. That's my overly pretentious reading of that facial expression. Thank you, thank you. So anyways, back to the rest of the image. Color usage. I think it's really cool, just like the color patterning that you have in Flowey's petals. You have like this really, really vibrant, like apple green mixed with this really, really golden red. And it gives like a lot of interest into that area because you have these really, really neon hearts just all over this image, but your eyes get drawn here because you're bringing these colors into his petals and a little bit onto his leaves as well, but not quite as much onto his petals, and that's really awesome. Also, this kind of like poison green in his eyes definitely drags your attention right here. So that's awesome. One other thing that's cool is that you brought in colors kind of reflecting off of just where the specific hearts are, because you have this purplish pink on the side of his face here where this heart is, and this green over here. Although you do have the green on this side, it's kind of weird that you wouldn't bring the blue into here, but that's a nitpick. This is really, really well done. One other thing that's cool about just your color use in general is that you kept the jars, or the vials that the hearts were kept in, the same colors. Basically, they're not quite as vibrant, but the basic color scheme is still present, and that's really nice. This kind of crack design to it as well, just where you have the highlights, is expertly done. I definitely approve of that. Just one thing that's a little weird about this glass is that it's a little too, I don't know, like melty on the top. I feel like it would probably have a more sharp edge to it, but honestly that is not any issue at all. Just if you were going for a more sharp glass like shape, then that would be what's more accepted, or that would be what's mostly expected. But the way that it looks right now, it almost reminds me of like ice, just like where it's almost starting to melt a little bit on the outsides. So that could be just the determination melting it. I don't know. They're not monster jars. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Anyways, yeah, you get to hear me go into like Undertale deep lore while I'm here. Awesome. So in the background, I definitely like the fact that you decided to put the action commands back there, and that you basically broke in all of them except for fight. So that's a lot of symbolism. It's awesome. I like it. Beautiful. As far as anything else that I would change in this image, Flowey's stem is a little inconsistent with the shaping. It's more like a lava lamp shape. Not really a deal breaker or anything. Just the same with the leaves as well. But it could also just be that he's starting to transform as well. So that's not an issue in my personal opinion. I think it's actually cool looking. But if you were trying to go for a more natural image of what a plant would do with the stem, it would typically stay the same width and then maybe get a little wider once it gets to the top of the flower and the bottom of the flower. But like I said, nitpicks. So honestly, I really, really enjoy this image. This is fantastic. So keep up the great work, and I'm looking forward to seeing some more stuff that you bring out in the future. So that is it for this video. Please check out Alkraas's DeviantArt page. Send her some love. And that is it for this video. If you want to be featured in another weekly art tips critique video, please send 2 images to the weekly art tips DeviantArt group, and I'll have that link in the description below, as well as the link to these fantastic images in the description below. So please check it out, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.